Good morning, everyone. Hope you had a wonderful Yantif, wonderful Shavuos. I dedicate this morning's learning memory of my mother, Mr. Shlomis Rabinowitz, Shlomis Bas, Rav Yaakov Eliezer. So right now we've begun already a set of Mishnayos that don't really have much to do with Arla, but following a pattern that the Mishnayos have been dealing with, which is kind of comparing and contrasting different things. So Mishnah Zayin, we're up to Perek Beis, chapter 2, Mishnah Zayin, Mishnah 7, and the Mishnah reads like this. Today we're going to do two Mishnayos. Dam mahalchei shtayim, the blood of those who walk on two feet, two legs. Shabbat dam behema is similar to the blood of an animal, lahachshos hazaroyim, to render the seeds fit for becoming tamei. Now, dam mahalchei shtayim, the blood of those who walk on two means the blood of a person. We can refer to the blood of a person who is dead. We refer to the blood of a person who's alive. His Mishnah is saying a person's blood is comparable to an animal's blood for the following law. In order for a food to become tamei, to become impure from a source of impurity, from a source of tumah, the food has to come into contact with a liquid. And there are 7 liquids that can render a food susceptible to tumah, to impurity, or what we call ritual impurity sometimes. One of those 7 liquids that does that is blood. The Mishnah the Torah says this that we derive that blood as one of those 7 liquids from a verse that appears by the blood of an animal. So the Mishnah is now saying that this law does not only apply to the blood of an animal, that the blood will render the food susceptible to tumah, the blood of a human being will also do that. So that's what it means. Dam mahalchei shtayim, the blood of those who walk on 2 feet, sheva ladam behema lahachshos hazaroyim, is similar to the blood of an animal to render the food, here it says seeds, but it means food, susceptible to tumah. The dam hasheretz ein chayavin alav. This means, literally translated, the blood of a sheretz, one is not liable for it. What that means is like this. A person who eats or who drinks, consumes the blood of a behema, of an animal, is liable to the punishment of karis, death by the hands of heaven, a premature death from heaven. That's if we're talking about consuming blood of an animal. If we're talking about the blood of a sheretz means a swarming creature or a creeping creature. And a sheretz, there were 8 crawling animals that transmit tumah when dead. It's based on a pasuk in Vayikra, a verse in the Torah, that there are certain animals referred to as a sheretz, and there's 8 of them. They're kind of like low crawling animals. And the halacha is that the blood of a sheretz, I mean, it's an animal, but the blood of a sheretz, one is not liable, it's forbidden to consume that blood, but one would not receive the punishment of karis, of premature death, for that. So that's what it means. V'dam hasheretz ein chayavim alav. The blood of a sheretz, one is not liable. Karis would not be liable to the punishment of karis for consuming it. That would be the punishment for one who consumes blood of an animal. Now, in the context of the Mishnah, the wording is a little bit curt, but the point is that just as we began the Mishnah saying that the blood of one who walks on 2 legs, when the blood of a human is like the blood of an animal regarding making food susceptible to tumah, here the Mishnah says, but it's also like sheretz, meaning in one way, it's like the blood of an animal, but in another way, it's like the blood of a sheretz. Just like the blood of a sheretz, there is no punishment of karis. It's forbidden to consume it. There's no punishment of karis. So too, human blood is forbidden to consume, but there will be no punishment of karis. In that way, the human blood is not like the blood of an animal. So the point of the Mishnah is, in one way, the blood of a human being is like the blood of an animal, and in other ways, it's like the blood of a sheretz. Okay. Now, the next Mishnah deals with the following. The animals in the Torah are divided into 2 categories. There's behema and chaya. Behema means an animal that is usually domesticated, typically domesticated, A chaya, which we refer to as a wild animal, is typically not domesticated. Cows, goats, sheep fall under the category of behema. A deer falls in the category of a chaya. The blood of both those, and very often when the Torah uses the term behema, it includes chaya. When it comes to the prohibition of consuming blood, for instance, the prohibition and the punishment that we mentioned before of kares applies both to the blood of a domesticated animal and a wild animal. And there are a number of differences in halach and Jewish law between an animal classified as a behema, as a domesticated animal, or classified as a chaya, as a wild animal. The Mishnah right now is going to deal with an animal that we've never really heard of, probably. It's called a koi. And there's a question if a koi is a cross between a goat and a deer, or it's an independent species that bears similarities to both goats and deer. And the question is, what status does it have? So this Mishnah is an introductory Mishnah to the next few Mishnahs that we're going to learn. And it reads like this: Kai, this animal called a kai, yesh b'drachma shebel chaya. There are ways that it's similar to a chaya, to a wild animal. Yesh b'drachma shebel behema. There are ways that it's similar to a behema, domesticated animal. Yesh b'drachma shebel behema ula chaya. There are ways in which it is similar to both a domesticated animal and a wild animal. Yesh b'drachim, and it has ways that it's not similar. That it's not similar to neither, not to a domesticated animal, not to a wild animal. The next few Mishnayos will now break down each statement that was said here and elaborate and illustrate what it means. We continue with the laws of Rechilas in the Chavetz Chaim, Klal Test, chapter 9, and we're about to start Sif Yud Beis, paragraph 12. Now, what the Chavetz Chaim has been discussing until now is the following. And that is that we're talking about where, at first we spoke about if you see a guy about to walk into a store and you see that he's the perfect target to be cheated by the owner of the store, who you know is not the most honest person. So first, the Chavetz Chaim spoke about, can you warn him beforehand? Then the discussion turned to, let's say he already bought the merchandise. So if there's nothing to do about, getting his money back, or at least getting the amount that he was overcharged, if there's nothing to do about it, then you cannot tell him that he got ripped off. But if, let's say, there will be something he could do, that this purchaser would have the ability, according to Jewish law, to go to a Beis Din, rabbinical court, and get the money back, or if you'd have the ways of getting back the money back in a proper way, in a correct manner, then you should tell him about the fact that he was cheated. But now the Chavetz Chaim says, but before you do that, you have to make sure that you meet a number of conditions, similar to what the Chavetz Chaim mentioned previously. Number one, you cannot either exaggerate or make greater than it is what exactly has been done wrong here. You can't overdo it on what was done wrong. You've got to be exact about how much he cheated you, or what kind of faults it has, but without going overboard. Just say it as it is without doing more than that. His primary intention should be to stand up for the truth and to help this person who's been wronged. Meaning he's doing it for the benefit of the one who is cheated, but not to enjoy the downfall of the cheater, and not because you enjoy getting back that this guy's getting caught with what he did. You may know clearly that this seller cheated the purchaser, but if your main purpose is going to be to get back at that guy and not so much about benefiting the purchaser, you're not allowed to do it. And in this condition, there's another point that falls under this. It's pretty much the same idea. You got to evaluate, will there be any kind of benefit to the purchaser from telling him? This is coming to exclude a situation where you know the nature of the person who was cheated. He's not the kind of person who's going to go to a rabbinical court and do something about what happened. Or to ask people to help him out with this. All he's going to do is have heartache. And by telling him what this person did to him, this person cheated him, he's just going to cause him to hate him. Then you don't tell him anything. And even more, if he asks you and he says, I can't really do anything about this, but like, did I get cheated? You then for sure don't answer him. And in the first manner that we just illustrated, meaning previously mentioned, a situation where that even though he was cheated, there are certain times where at a certain point of time, you cannot go back, the purchaser can't go back to the seller and try to either annul the purchase or get his money back or even get back the overcharge. There's a point of time that he loses the ability to do that according to Jewish law. If that's the situation, mitzvah l'shabeach hamekach b'fanav. Meaning if the guy is stuck with this article, you should praise it. You should compliment him on it. And it's not called lying. In this situation where, he's stuck with this thing. And now what are you going to do for him? You should at least, this is a situation where you should make him feel good. Anytime somebody purchases something, you should make them feel good about it. Now, in a situation where you can't do anything about this faulty object that he got or the fact that it was overcharged, and you can't do anything about it. So what you should be doing then is, like any other time, you should be complimenting him for it. You should be praising what he got, because that's what a person wants to hear. If the situation is that by telling him the truth, there can be benefit to him, a constructive purpose will come out of it, they tell him the truth. But otherwise, Talmud says you actually should praise a person for this purchase. He liked it. He thought it was good. So make him feel good and compliment him on it and hope for the best in the future. But the point of the Chavetz Chaim in this paragraph is to say that not only does your intent have to be for a constructive purpose, but you have to realize, is there going to be a constructive purpose from this? Gimel 3, if you know that you could rebuke, you could speak to the seller and he'll return what he cheated. Go ahead and privately rebuke him that he should give back the what he cheated him. But you got to need it, and you don't have. He doesn't say anything to the person who to the person who got cheated. Sure, at the end of the day, if the seller gives it back the money, he knows he was cheated. But you didn't tell him that. You didn't have to tell him that. You took care of that without having to tell him that. You avoided speaking rechilas. That's what you have to do if you can. Daled 4. Now here he's talking about even if, let's say, rebuking the seller won't help, but if somehow or another, without having to tell the purchaser that he was cheated, you can solve this problem somehow. There's some other way of solving this problem without having to tell him directly that he was cheated. You should do that. Hey, number 5, this person that you're telling that he got cheated, he shouldn't be someone who has the nature of to speak rechilas, meaning to tell others what others have said or done regarding them. Meaning, if you realize the purchaser has this very negative trait of going and telling people what other people have said about them or done to them, what's going to happen is you're going to tell this guy, you got cheated. So you know what he's going to do? He's going to go back to the seller. The purchaser's going to go back to the seller and say, so-and-so told me that you cheated me. You basically caused him to speak rechilas. Sure, you're trying to benefit him, but then he doesn't just go ahead and take care of himself. He also speaks rechilas about you. He says, not clear to him if that in that situation you should be telling him the truth. Because you're causing him to speak rechilas. Forget about what's going to happen to you. The point is that this person now goes back to the seller and he says, so-and-so told me you cheated me. You just spoke rechilas. And if you know that's what he's going to do when you tell him all this, then he says it's not so. Chavetz Chaim says tzarechim, and she's left with a question whether you should tell him, because at the end of the day, sure, you're going to go ahead and benefit him and get his money back, because that's the only way you can tell him this. But now he's going to go speak rechilas about you, and he's going to be sinning. So who says that in order to go ahead and help him get his money back, that you can that's okay, that's okay to do if at the same time you're causing him to speak rechilas? However, says the Chavetz Chaim, it would seem, or it appears, now, let's say this guy is the kind of guy that'll go back and say, hey, somebody told me, I was told that he would go ahead and he would tell the person that what you said about him. But if, let's say, you know that if you tell this person, do not mention me. Don't mention my name. Don't tell him that I went ahead and told you that he cheated you. And you can believe that this person will not do that. Meaning, without warning him, he may do it. But now, with warning him or telling him not to go ahead and say your name, you can trust that he won't say your name. Then he says Yasakain. Then tell him that he got cheated. Again, because we're talking about a situation where he can get his money back rightfully. He's not going to speak rechilas because he's not going to tell who told him that he got cheated. And therefore, you would be permitted to tell him that he got cheated for his benefit. Have a wonderful day.